Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. We're looking at Luke 18. This is a chapter that has affected and influenced me in my prayer life probably as much as any other passage in the Bible. I love Luke chapter 18. Now, we mentioned yesterday about how people change our lives, but it's not so much that the people change our lives, it's the stories that from their lives we learn lessons about life. You know, we will probably forget a principle that we hear sometimes, but normally we don't forget a story. That's why Jesus told parables and stories. And that's why I'm convinced Luke, who is a physician who cared about people, wrote about widows and politicians. He wrote about Pharisees and publicans. He wrote about little children and adults, rich men and beggars. And he gave us a rich cast of characters that we could learn from and see how God worked in their lives and how God can work in our life and how God wants us to live. And we learn how to live life rather than just live to make a living and enjoy life the way God intended for us to enjoy it. And this is a powerful story about prayer because Jesus begins this parable and he says that men ought always to pray and not lose heart, not quit. Either we're praying or we're quitting. And he introduces us here, Luke introduces us in this parable to a story Jesus told about a widow. And there's three characters in this story. There's a judge, first a certain judge in a city. And this judge was an unjust judge. He didn't fear God. He didn't fear man. He did what he wanted. He was on the take. He was a liberal who did what he wanted to do that was best for him and his party and his friends. And he was on the take, an unjust judge. Now, my friend, we live in a day today in America that it appears to me we have a lot of unjust judges, sad to say. And thank God we have a lot of good ones too. So let's don't throw in the towel on all of them because of those that are unjust like this one here. And then there was an adversary. She said she had an adversary. She said, give me justice from my adversary. Now, my friend, we are like the widow, hopeless and helpless without someone to stand up for us. Or when you understand widows, in the days of Jesus in Palestine at that time, they had no standing with the law. They didn't have a husband to go to court for them because they were not allowed to go to court. They had no money to pay a bribe that a judge would want or the people outside the tent. Now, a judge in those days would move from place to place to place in his little tent and set up court, and he'd have his bodyguards or his officials stand at the door, and only those that maybe paid a bribe or that got in the right line or had the right standing could get in to even see him to get a judgment from him. And so this widow had no way to contend or find someone who would get her even to the judge. All she could do is stand outside the door and yell and scream and holler, please avenge me of my adversary. You know, Jesus tells us in this story that this unjust judge is a picture of God. And we're going to see that as we talk through this in the next few days. But what we find out today is that we are just like that widow. And we have an adversary. Our adversary is the devil. He goes about like a roaring lion. He deceives. He devours. He's out to steal, to kill, and destroy. And this lady had no way to defend herself against her adversary. And my friends, by ourselves, we cannot stand against our adversary, the devil. We need to be sober. We need to be vigilant. He's like a roaring lion. And I'm telling you, he makes a lot of noise. It makes us think we are in big time trouble. And my friend, we are if we don't know how to go to our Father in prayer and ask him to defend us, to avenge us, to meet our needs, to strengthen us. That's why every morning I pray the Lord's Prayer as I walk around our house. I pray this prayer, Lord, avenge me of the adversary in my life and Edith's life. And then I go through all my children, all my grandchildren, and most of the members in all their families, asking God, avenge me of the adversary today, because I have a God who is willing and ready and open arms waiting for us to call on his name to avenge us today. Well, what a great lesson, and we'll study it in a little bit more depth tomorrow. Read the blog. I think it'll be interesting for you. God bless you, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day.